Hello, my name is Rhea Basroon. I'm a reporter with the Sentinel, and we are here today with our second part of a two-part series on Wheelabrator Frye's proposed Resco plant on Edgeboro Road. The last time we met, we found that we had just scratched the surface, and we could go on forever talking about the implications of a garbage incinerator in East Brunswick. And we did a broad spectrum of issues last time. This time we would like to zero in on some of the problems and concerns of residents. I have with me Mayor William Fox, Sheila Sideman, who is a member of Irate, and Joe Ferrrante, a vice president of Wheelabrator Frye. When Wheelabrator Frye was first brought up to the public, Bill, you seemed very pro-resource recovery, and as the public opposition grew, you seemed to change your mind. Can you tell us what happened?
Well, I think there are really two issues. One are the public policy issues, and the other is the specific application that we have. I think it's clear to anyone who has looked at the solid waste problem that landfilling is perhaps the most environmentally insensitive way of disposing of solid waste. Now, it happens that we have a landfill in East Brunswick. It is being equipped with appropriate environmental controls, but the concern I think that many people have is that new landfills will be required in the future. And I have a great concern over what has happened to many of the wetlands in our state, and indeed up and down the East Coast. These areas that are called truthfully nurseries of the sea have been destroyed by the hundreds and thousands of acres. And we simply can't afford that. So we have to have alternative means of disposing of solid waste. And most solid waste plans throughout the country call for some type of resource recovery facility, usually a mass burning facility, because that is the state of the art of the technology. And it seemed to me that it made sense to consider such a facility for Middlesex County. I am not surprised that there was opposition to it, but I felt that the company that wanted to do it would come forth with potential benefits for the municipality and for the surrounding area, financially, environmentally, and so on, and that has not happened. Now, as opposition has grown, I think that it becomes more and more difficult to consider this application in a non-controversial way. I might point out very specifically that that what I had said about this particular proposal was that the application process should continue, that I had seen nothing to the point of, say, last September or October that led me to believe that it was less environmentally dangerous, more environmentally dangerous than existing methods, namely landfilling. And since it is a rational approach to disposing of our waste, it made perfect sense to me to allow the application process to go forth and to consider it very carefully. In the meantime, what has happened is that the sense I get of the community is that the community does not want such a facility in East Brunswick. And no one elected me dictator, and I think that it is important to be responsive to the needs of and desires and concerns of the community. And I think that is a responsible position to take. Now, there are those who say, well, that's a political position, or that's you're waffling or whatever, as though there's something wrong with that. But no one appointed me or elected me to be the dictator of what our community gets. I don't think that's what leadership is about. I don't think that's what responsible office holding is about. So that I have indicated that I'm opposed to this particular proposal. Now, it's more rational than that, because as we have gathered data, as we have the results of the study of criteria for resource recovery facilities, as we have examined and others have examined the Saugus operation in greater detail, I think there are good environmental reasons for being opposed to this facility at this time. Now, I don't doubt that sometime in the next 10 years there's going to be a resource recovery facility somewhere in the Raritan River Valley or Basin in one of the communities that abut the Raritan River. I don't know that there's any urgency to have that kind of facility. Edgeboro landfill has a life of at least 10 more years, by state estimates, longer by the operator's estimates. And I don't know that there's a crisis that demands that we go ahead with such a facility at this time. And frankly, I would rather have a facility that's built after, if it's going to be RESCO, after they have experience with the plant in Westchester online for a while, and after they have experience with the plant in Baltimore online for a while. And then we can get the benefit of that operational experience and their experience with whatever environmental hazards might be present. So that I don't know that we will never see a resource recovery facility. I just don't think the time is now. And I think that the failure, quite frankly, Joe, to be very direct, the failure of Wheelabrator or RESCO to reach out to the community very early in this process and educate the community about who they were and what they were trying to do and what the potential benefits to the community might be is responsible for the lack of acceptance of this proposal to a large degree in our community. And I think that we're better off for those reasons and environmentally just to wait and see a third, fourth, fifth generation plant constructed here or around us someplace.
But we have spoken together about if East Brunswick says no and the state listens, the plant might move to Edison or maybe South River.
That's true.
And seeing that the state has not been so quick to set up statewide standards, so we know that no matter where the plant is, it will be operating as well as it could possibly operate. How do you feel about the Wheelabrator Frye just moving across the river?
Well, if the facility has serious negative environmental impacts, whether it's in Edison or Saraville or South River or East Brunswick, the impact on us is going to be the same. And I frankly believe that we have the resources and the professional staff and the elected officials in East Brunswick who are better able to deal with the review and application process than some of these other communities. And if there has to be a facility in the general area that we've talked about, I believe that our citizens are protected more by having it here than someplace else. If it's someplace else, we get whatever negatives come with it and no positives. We can talk about whether the amount of taxes received is enough. We can talk about perhaps concessions on tipping fees for the host municipality and so on. But if it's someplace else, if there are negative impacts, we get all of those. We really do. The only one that we don't get is that it's not physically located in East Brunswick and it's an Edison plant or a Saraville plant. But physically, it's going to be just about the same place, and we get none of the positive benefits.
Except the trucks, the lack of trucks.
Well, if it's in South River, if it's on this side of the river, the trucks are going to be coming the same way. If it's on the other side of the river, then we have to pay a price because our garbage eventually is going to have to go to the other side of the river along with everybody else's. So I think it's a very difficult issue, and it's not quite as clear-cut as being for or against it, as many people have said. But and it's going to take a long time to sort it out.
Okay. Now, Joe, I'd like to ask you, what do you think is in it for East Brunswick to take a RESCO plant?
Well, first let me respond a little bit to the mayor's observations. I take his criticisms to heart. I think we misjudged the reception that we would be accorded in East Brunswick. We had, as you mentioned, since 1974 been canvassing Middlesex County and watched the evolution of the planning process within the county and within East Brunswick, and felt that what we were proposing was quite consistent with the planning process, both at the county and at the township level. I guess, and I think this is our error, we misunderstood and misjudged the understanding that reflected on the part of the public at large. And I think in that respect we bear full responsibility for not having made our case more effectively to the public. I appreciate this opportunity to perhaps get a clearer thought process across to the people who will be affected by the plant.
Can I interrupt you for 1 minute?
Sure.
I remember that last year, around just about a year ago, the Herberts hosted a public meeting at a church on Cranberry Road. Were you surprised at the outcry at that meeting?
Sure was.
The meeting was packed, there were public officials there was screaming and yelling, and it was almost out of control.
I was
Did
very
that scare
surprised.
you away?
No, it didn't scare us away, but it made us reevaluate what was going on. And I think at that point we decided that one pressing issue or a couple of pressing issues should be addressed, and we retained some consultants to look at it in greater detail. The issues of scrubbers were raised, whether or not we should put scrubbers on. We'd never faced that issue frontally before because the vast majority of these plants, as they're operating throughout the world, don't operate with scrubbers. It's a newer technology, and it may be an improvement. It certainly has some benefits in terms of eliminating some of the HCl and the sulfur dioxide emissions that are associated with combustion processes. The question in our mind is reliability, cost, and what are you actually benefiting by putting them on. You transform a pollution from the air, a potential pollutant from the air, to the ground. These are all factors that have to be weighed against each other, but there's no doubt that the overall educational process as far as we performed was poorly served. We do feel, however, that at this juncture we are formally in the permit application process. Before March 4th of this year, we were proposing in an informal way to build a plant. We hadn't formally submitted any applications to any agency of government. On March 4th, we submitted our application to the state DEP for site registration at Edgeboro. Now we're at a point where we can formally address the issues that attend that application, such as what is the appropriate technology for pollution control, what will be the cost, what will be the benefits, how will the plant be operated, what will be the benefits to the host town, what will be the level of taxes or payments in lieu of taxes if that's the appropriate way, what other benefits in terms of operating costs to the town for disposal, will there be a revenue sharing system shared with the municipalities involved in delivering refuse to the project. These are issues that are basic issues that are being developed in a variety of ways throughout the country. We're not unfamiliar with them, but we feel that at this point, now that an application has been formally filed, it's appropriate for us to come to grips with them on a realistic level.
Did I hear that in Peekskill, the host community will get a reduction on their electric bills?
Well, that's an arrangement that the city and the county have worked with the utility, Con Ed in that case, yes. There are variety, an infinite variety practically, an infinite variety of possibilities for benefits for the town and the county and the state. It's just a question of what is the ultimate impact going to be on the project and what can people live with.
Fine. Do you have any comment about Bill's statement that we should wait until you're more experienced in resource recovery plants?
Well, we feel we're pretty well experienced now. The technology's been around for about a generation and a half. There have been improvements. I won't deny the fact that every technology improves. Automobiles have been around for a few generations and there's always improvements coming out. But in this case, the improvements are incremental. We ourselves at Edgeboro, if we get to build Edgeboro, and in Westchester and in Baltimore are installing a different type of grate structure than we have used in our Saugus plant and that have been used in other installations in Europe and Asia. It's a significant improvement, but it's an incremental one. It will make the plant more efficient. It may reduce downtime, but it won't significantly alter the basic technology. These are refinements. These are changes that all technologies experience as they mature.
If improvements are found, let's say in 5 years after the plant is built, could they be retroactively put into the Edgeboro RESCO?
Many of them can. Many of them can. We are retrofitting the furnace up at Saugus with the new grate system. So in that case, it can be done. Pollution control features can be installed.
Including scrubbers?
Absolutely. Space can be allowed for the installation of different types of pollution control devices. Absolutely.
In case some of you didn't see our first program, scrubbers are equipment that take out acid emissions from the stack. When they combine with moisture, they could cause acid rains. And the truth is that the acid rains would not totally affect East Brunswick, or really at all. The emissions must travel quite a bit before they turn into acid rains. And one resource recovery plant would not significantly affect acid rains. But if the state does get the 19 or 20 plans that they're discussing right now, the impact in Massachusetts and Canada, or maybe out in Bermuda, could be significant. And our acid rains, and we have quite a bit of it, comes from the Ohio Valley. And one feeling that people have had is that if we don't put in scrubbers in New Jersey, how can we ask the people in the Ohio Valley to put in scrubbers at the time when they start using resource recovery plants? Sheila, could you tell us some more about IRATE? Can you tell me, what does IRATE want?
At this point, I think IRATE's chief desire would be to have the state put a moratorium on all major decisions and all building projects. An awful lot of money is being spent in many localities and in many counties in New Jersey, and I'm sure all over the country, but just staying with New Jersey, as towns like East Brunswick, counties like Mercer County have recently spent $1.5 million on studies. East Brunswick spent $40,000, is spending another large sum on lawyers. Not all of these monies come from local revenues, but they come from taxes, and we all pay taxes, and it doesn't matter if it's your federal, your state, or your local tax that's paying for these studies. What's happening is, as companies like Wheelabrator Frye are responding to mandates from the state to help us out of our garbage problem, on local levels we're having to deal with this. If the state instead could put a moratorium on this and do a cohesive study involving probably representatives from every county, from companies like Wheelabrator Frye, to sit down and really come out with a logical plan, I think this would go a long way to solving a lot of the problems and the opposition. In Middlesex County, we have as much to worry about in terms of pollution and environmental problems for the plant that's going into Somerset County, because we're downwind of Somerset County, as we do from the proposed Wheelabrator Frye plant. And frankly, I think the state has abdicated its responsibility, and I think that's why local citizens get as excited as they sometimes do over this issue. I think that the county freeholders have abdicated much of their responsibility. They seem to be operating behind closed doors, whether they are or are not. Many of us were really shocked to discover the extensive relationship between the county and Wheelabrator Frye, that in the county's proposal for a resource recovery plant, instead of a generic plant, Mr. Ferrrante was asked to furnish the model, or volunteered, I don't know which one. These kinds of things disturb us because it really leads us to wonder what the motives are. So we would like to see a moratorium, and at the same time, we would like to see a greater emphasis on recycling and source recovery. Many materials can be reused. In the long run, we're not only paying to dispose of our garbage, but we're paying to replace all the materials that we're throwing out. So I think we'd like to see a multifaceted approach.
Do you have anything else you'd like to say, Bill?
Well, I think that it's just important for people to remember that this is an extremely complex issue. It is related emotionally, I think, to much of the anti-technology feeling that many people have these days. It is an issue which unfortunately has been politicized by some people in the community, which makes it very difficult, as I've said, to have rational discussion of it. I think that it's important also for people to believe that and understand that, at least from where I sit, there are public officials at state, county, and local level have no interest other than the public interest at heart. And that the people on staff and the people who are consulting with staff and with the elected and appointed officials are very competent people. We have, I think, at the county level and at the local level, some of the best consultants in this area around. We certainly have one of the best attorneys around locally. People on staff at the state are very competent people who are paid to be expert in their areas, and they have available to them appropriate consultants. I think that it has to be viewed as a rational process, a process in which everybody is trying to follow the law and do really what is best for our state and our county and our municipality. And if we can keep it in that vein, then I think we have a real possibility of coming out with a solution that is going to benefit us all in the long run. So I just would plead for people in the community to treat this as a rational process and attempt to deal with it factually.
And Joe, recently you said that you're looking for a 50% partner in the project. Originally you said it would be totally self-financed by Wheelabrator Frye. Do you have any information about who this partner may be?
I'm not sure we ever said it would be totally self-financed by Wheelabrator Frye. Our pattern of financing these plants has been pretty well established and documented. We finance them as a form of project financing, which means that Wheelabrator Frye takes up to 50% of the equity position in the project financing. We always look for a joint venture partner. In the case of the Boston plant, the landfill owner, the previous landfill owner, became our joint venture partner on a 50-50 basis. In the case of the proposed Edgeboro project, we will look for a suitable equity partner, whether it be an individual, a company, or an institutional investor. However, we do require that under those conditions we become the managing partner for the joint venture and assume responsibility for the technology as well as its construction and operation.
And to correct your past mistakes, as you call them, what public relations activities do you have planned for the next few months?
Well, we're going to open up an exhibit within the next 2 weeks at the Brunswick Square Mall, and it will run Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the 23rd, 4th, and 5th of April. We'll be on hand, our staff will be on hand to meet people and discuss the project with them, answer questions to the best of our ability, and establish some type of follow-up mechanism whereby we can continue as the project further develops to supply interested people with more information on it. We do plan to hold a series of coffee hours at local restaurants or at some of the local hotels, and announce them in advance so that people who would like to stop by and chat with us will have a place to do it.
And Sheila, what about Irate? How are they spreading their message?
Well, we're right now actively involved in writing the letter of exceptions, which is a technical or legal term that has to do with the processing of the document that Mr. Ferrrante has filed. If I have this correct, and correct me, Joe, if I'm wrong, but as I understand it now, the proposal you made is a preliminary or the initial part of a proposal. All interested parties have a certain amount of time to respond and to talk about what they feel are omissions or what other things they would like discussed. We have a whole technical crew pouring through the thousands of pages that Mr. Ferrante's team has turned out. And that is our initial thrust. We have lawyers who are working with us as well as environmentalists and technical people. We're going to continue talking to people. We're going to continue talking to Mr. Ferrrante. I want to thank you for having this meeting. I'm sorry that we could not get together earlier in the whole process, and I mean that sincerely. I was one of the people who was at that meeting, and I was very embarrassed, and you may not remember it, Joe, but I came up during that meeting and apologized for some of the people there, something you may not believe I did. I don't believe that's how you have a dialogue, even though I do tend sometimes to get heated. I like talking with people, and I think that perhaps we could have solved a lot of problems together. Maybe we still can, and I would like to think that the community and Wheelabrator and the government can work together to solve the problems. Garbage is not going to go away. We're all not going to stop throwing things out, and we do have to deal with it in a rational manner.
Thanks.
Bill, in 1 minute or less, can you tell me how you're going to handle, well, it's not you really, but Resco has become a political issue. There were 3 seats up in the council, and the Republicans have told me that will be their main issue.
Well, I think we're going to do what we're doing, and that is getting the appropriate help when we need it, giving the application a thorough review, and taking whatever steps we need to take to be sure that the interests of the community are represented as the application goes through the process.
Okay, I would like to thank my guests, Mayor Fox, Sheila Sideman, and Joe Ferrrante. I would like to invite you to call in your comments or questions, because we would be very happy to continue this series. Just call the video department at 254-1220, and thank you for watching.